The most common ways people know how to make guitar sound better is by doubling the part. That's an obvious one, but how you go about doubling it is going to change whether it sounds great or it just sounds meh. How's it going? If you saw my other guitar video on how to get good guitar sounds, this is a follow-up to that. Anytime you record a guitar part, you got to think about panning. Panning left and right. Hard left and right will get it out of the way of the vocal. But then in addition to that, when you record your parts, change the sound on the guitar from when you think about it in terms of, okay, this one will be on the left. Then the one that's on the right should be a different guitar, a different speaker cabinet, a different pedal in front of the signal. Change something so that the stereo image widens out. Because by making the sound exactly the same on the left and then doubling it, like playing it again and moving it to the right, exactly the same is not going to make it really true, great stereo. It's going to sound like just a wider mono signal, really. And that sound, when it's wider mono, is thinner. And it also gets in the way of the center. It messes with the vocal in the center. So your goal here, to get things to spread out, is to change the sound from the way you play the part. Could be the exact same part, but play it with a different sound on the left as you do on the right. All right, that's the idea. Now, another great tip is on a lot of records, we're in our head when we think great guitar sounds, a lot of times they would layer multiple guitar amps in addition to like multiple mics. So let's say you have 2 mics on a guitar amp. To create a sound for the chorus, it might get more distorted. Now, to get clarity in the distortion, you could have an amp that's in the very distorted range and then something a little cleaner but still has some drive to it to do pokier parts, and that could literally be all on the left side as one sound. So in other words, 2 mics on one amp, and then you play it again with a different guitar or a different amp, let's say, like an AC-15, an AC-30, something, a Fender Twin with a tube screamer in front of it, something that'll make it poke out more, and generally that'll all be part of one guitar sound. And then you could do the same thing on the right, and that'll really thicken you up. Another way to look at this is have an enforcer guitar. That's the Joe Barresi way to do it. Your idea would be, if you have it generally left and right in a verse, when the chorus comes in, you have an additional guitar, in the center. It could be panned slightly left or right of center or both, but the idea is you need to somehow then fill up the middle with that enforcer. Now, the sounds of these things should all be different. I can't stress that enough. That's why, like, duplicating the performance is never going to make it sound like a true double. It's never going to make it sound stereo. Like, if you just duplicate the track, you have to play it again, of course, to get those slight irregularities, which make it better. And you also have to use a different sound. Changing the pickup is sometimes not enough. It will be better than not. Sometimes if you only got one guitar or whatever, one amp, just change the pickup or consider putting a pedal in front of it. Another thing you're going to want to do, play with less gain. This may be a little outside of your comfort zone, but that's good. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because less gain will make your track sound better. Things aren't the same. When you're capturing that sound in the room, then it goes through some plugins. It's going to get slightly distorted more, compressed more, just by hitting through the mix bus and everything. So your guitar is going to sound great if you can play the part. So in other words, just play the part, back off the gain on what you typically would. Because what you'll notice is once you turn the gain up past a certain threshold, a certain point, you lose all dynamics on the guitar. The guitar no longer can get from quiet to loud. There's no longer that excitement in the guitar. It just flatlines. And that happens the second you turn the gain up too loud. The second the preamp is driving too hard, you lose everything. So keep this in mind. The key here is to make that gain part of your signal as little as you can get away with. So wherever you're comfortable, turn it down a little. Make it where you're a little uncomfortable and try to make it happen that way. Because then when you listen back afterwards, you're going to be way happier than that crushed, over distorted, no dynamic feeling of an over distorted sound. All right, this applies to all genres too, because in every genre there's a you may need more distortion on a metal song or something, but again, there's ways of making it where the guitar will still poke out. Don't just crank the gain knob. Find that moment of good dynamic range in the guitar, and you got to live there. And usually that's way less gain than you think. Something else you got to keep in mind, if you're trying to record a clean sound on your guitar, it's not going to cut through a dense mix unless you put a little bit of grit on it. A little bit goes a long way, even on a clean sound. When I'm recording guitars that I want to sound clean, there's always a little bit of grit on it anyway. It works better. If you're dealing with jazz where everything's very quiet, you can get away with a way cleaner sound because everybody's playing super quiet, that the guitar can actually be heard when it's clean. But if you have a dense mix and a drummer playing loud and a bassist in there doing stuff and vocals and harmonies, you're going to lose the guitar if it's totally clean. You have to add a little grit. This is the same reason why on bass you have to add a little grit just to make it cut through. Otherwise it gets lost. And this is also the same reason why Eddie Van Halen and a lot of different players would crank their amps up very high. Hendrix, Stevie Ray, they're using amps cranked because that allowed them to get a better sound than if they overdriven it to hell. He's keeping it clean and he's turning his amp up loud. So what you have to learn from this is that you can get a sound that's more of what will sound great coming out of the speakers with less gain, but with the amp louder, you have more leeway to get away with that and make it sound great. The sound will naturally have a better thickness to it than if you gain it out and you lose all dynamic range. More stuff coming at you. Keeping it short for today. Custom Cut Studios. My name's Evan Jaffe. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. We got tons more coming. Notifications on so you don't miss anything. And we got a special offer on our website right now for mixing and mastering. So hit us up. Talk to you soon. Private lessons. Everything's in the description. Custom Cut. You guys got this. Take it easy.